Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Left Konoha with Itachi. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 3 of it, comment down below, and let me know. The like goal for this video is 200 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. Then go ahead, and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. 1 month later, Naruto was bored. He was fed up with these meaningless D-rank missions. A ninja of his caliber, although no one knows, should be able to go on higher ranked missions, and today was the day he would finally get one, he promised himself. Well, alrighty then. I'll take your word for it. Just meet me at the front gates in an hour. That should be enough time too for you to get there, he said hurriedly. He then walked out the room. Naruto shrugged. I notice it too. But sadly, we cannot offer any more people to go on the mission, Hiruzen said with a sigh. Kakashi waved his hand. 1 hour later. Sure, he said before pulling out a pair of dice. Name your price and number. Naruto took out a little bit of money. 1 more time can't hurt, he said, mostly trying to convince himself. I guess 9. He yelled and threw the dice. Naruto quickly said something. I choose 1. He spoke. Everyone looked at him weirdly. There were 2 dice, and you can only have 2 to 12 as a valid number. Izumo smirked. Told you, Naruto said. His eyes showed amusement. Izumo sputtered and then angrily slapped the money into Naruto's hand. Naruto began laughing until he realized something. Dozu and Maizu, former chunins of the village hidden in the mist, were currently camped out in a genjutsu, and were surprised when the group walked over them, not bothering to even glance at the puddle. They smirked in unison. This would make their job a whole lot easier. They jumped out of the genjutsu, dispelling it, and sent their chains to wrap up the man in the jonin vest, and pulled hard, tearing the man to shreds. 1 down. 4 more to go, Gozu said with a dark chuckle until a small sword protruded from his stomach. What? He whispered before he fell to the ground dead. Maizu looked up and saw the small group disappearing. Dazuna, can you tell me why 2 chunin level ninja are after you? This mission has just been bumped up to a B-class mission, which are only for chunin level ninja and up, Kakashi said. His tone said that he wouldn't accept any more lies. Dazuna sighed and began telling the whole truth about Gato and what he was doing for his country. After a moment of silence, Naruto spoke. She said sure. He then looked at Kakashi, who seemed to be thinking about something important. What about you, Kakashi-sensei? Are you coming with us? Kakashi eyed Naruto and decided to test his will and intellect. What if I said no? And then ordered you to come back to Konoha? He asked. Naruto's eyes smiled. I would still go, but I wouldn't force my teammates to come with me. But then you could get written up for insubordination, and that's a crime punishable by death in certain type of circumstances. Kakashi replied, causing Sakura to gasp, scared that her blonde friend just might have to face death. Naruto's eyes smiled. How do you know that? Naruto smirked under his scarf and walked up to him slowly. So, your father is the 4th Hokage? She whispered in a low voice, but not low enough to where no one could hear her. Naruto looked at her. I have a bad feeling, he said to his teammates, earning weird looks from them. He then sensed something in the bushes to his left, and quickly threw 3 kunai in its direction. The sudden motion startled his teammates, and put them on alert for danger. Kakashi, who was reading his book, slowly put it away and grabbed a kunai in a reverse grip. The bushes rustled a little bit before a snow-white bunny came into view. Dinner guys, Naruto yelled as he ran towards the bunny, his mind going a mile a second. The white rabbit in the middle of summer. I call bogus. Someone was there in these bushes, and used the replacement jutsu to avoid my kunai, he thought as he picked up the rabbit slowly. A large sword then flew over their heads and hit a tree next to them. Then, the owner of the sword jumped on the sword that was now seemingly stuck in the tree. Naruto stood in awe. I'm honored that a brat like you knows me. What are you doing reading a bingo book? Naruto instantly brought out a bunch of kunai with small pieces of paper on them, and flung them harshly at the man. Zabuza dodged the kunai easily, evading them and letting the kunai get stuck in the tree behind him. You're going to have to do better than that, Naruto smirked. Naruto, who was looking intently at the spot Zabuza was in, made out a figure in the smoke. No way, he whispered. There stood Zabuza. His clothing was now burnt and ripped, and his hair was singed. His body was covered with a little black, and he had splinter littering his torso. He was now glaring at the blonde genin. You brat, he barked out before he charged Naruto and swung his blade full force down, but was intercepted by a single kunai, courteously by Kakashi, who was now standing in front of Naruto. Ah, Kakashi of the Sharingan, what are you doing here? Kakashi, who was struggling with the sheer weight of the sword, grunted. Few minutes later. Apparently, he didn't have to. Kakashi was handling the fight, with the help of his Sharingan, and the occasional throw of paper bomb kunai from Naruto. They beat Zabuza soundly. Do you see the future? Zabuza said, his eyes bloodshot. Kakashi looked into his eyes, his showering and spinning. You were right, he did die. The figure said. Kakashi leaned back, letting the hunter nin do what they did best. I thank you for the assistance on his capture. I've been tracking him for many days. Kakashi nodded. No problem, he said as he watched the hunter nin vanish. He then turned to Naruto. I'm a little sleepy. I'm going night-night, he said in a woozy voice, before collapsing face down in the ground. Naruto shrugged and made 2 shadow clones. Carry his lazy ass. Just follow us. He turned to Tazuna. Lead us the way, he said simply. Tazuna nodded and walked forward, leading them to a place that'd impact the rest of their lives. Naruto was currently looking out at the sea. The scent of the salt water had reached his nose. He inhaled deeply and sighed happily, despite everything that had happened. First, there was 2 Chunin assassins, then Zabuza, then Kakashi getting knocked out from exhaustion, and finally, the hunter nin wasn't really a hunter nin and Zabuza was alive, and had a friend, a very skilled friend. He sighed and turned away from the large body of water and walked into Tazuna's home, where his daughter, Tsunami, was cooking breakfast for everyone. He walked up the stairs and into the room where Kakashi was recuperating. He was sitting up, sipping on some tea. Naruto snorted. Tea? Loser, coffee is the way to go, he said as he pulled out a mug of coffee from under his cloak. Kakashi looked in interest, thinking his student was going to reveal his face, but sadly, he was wrong. Naruto turned away into a corner, and took off his scarf, sipping loudly to annoy his sensei, which was clearly working as Kakashi's eye twitched viciously. He turned around, the mug now empty, his eyes were wide. Sensei always did say not to drink a lot at one time, Naruto said before looking at Kakashi. Not you, my other one. I'm really hyper right now, let's go train, Naruto yelled quickly, before vanishing to the front yard. Kakashi, who only heard hyper, let's, and train, grabbed his crutches and headed outside. Sayuri and Sakura, who were both already outside, were surprised when a crazed Naruto came rounding out of the house. He saw his teammates and grinned. Guys, we're going to go train, Kakashi-sensei is coming, and I hope I learn something because if I can't I'm going to murder him in his sleep, Naruto said quickly. Neither of the girls understood anything and just nodded their heads slowly. Naruto grinned widely. Kakashi then came outside, wobbling with his crutches. Naruto looked even more excited. I get to train, he yelled, thankfully slowly enough for the girls to pick up. Kakashi waved at them lazily, and motioned them to follow him. 5 minutes later, Team 7 appeared in a forest. A large tree was standing in front of them. Kakashi pointed at the tree. Climb that tree. Sakura, who was surprised to hear that was all, spoke. We already know how to climb trees, sensei, she said in a doubtful voice at her sensei's lack of knowledge. Kakashi eyes smiled. Climb the tree, without your hands, he said, before he walked right up the tree with only his feet and crutches. Naruto, who was trying to contain his hyper self, eye twitched furiously. He took out his sword and slowly applied chakra to his feet, walking up the tree, his sword grazing the bark. I said if you didn't teach me anything, I'd kill you. I'll kill you, Naruto yelled as he suddenly ran at Kakashi, swinging his sword down at the branch, chopping it off and sending Kakashi plunging to the ground. Kakashi was surprised that Naruto already knew this, but tried to compromise as he landed softly on the ground. How about water walking? Naruto flung shuriken at him. Already know it, he yelled as he made a couple hand signs under his cloak. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, he yelled as the couple of shuriken turned to many. Kakashi's eyes widened considerably. He's going to kill me, he deadpanned in thought. He then began to use his trump card. What about Rasengan? He yelled, his eyes closed shut, waiting for the impact. Nothing happened. He slowly opened an eye to find Naruto standing in front of him, smiling innocently. He sighed. A promise is a promise, I guess. Come on, he said as he walked to another section of the forest, where he would teach Naruto his father's legacy. Sayuri and Sakura watched the pair leave them in the forest, and both sighed in unison. Yes, we have to learn our technique, before we can advance like him, Sakura said sadly. Sayuri frowned. 10 minutes later with Kaka and Nar. Kakashi stood, dumbfounded as he saw the remain of a water balloon, and a rubber ball. Several of them in fact. When Naruto popped the water balloon, Kakashi thought it was luck. When he did it several more times, Kakashi admitted he passed that phase. When it came to the rubber ball, it was a little harder for Naruto, but he still got it in relative ease. Kakashi, not believing it in the slightest, checked his other rubber balls to see if they were damaged or defected. They weren't. He made Naruto do more rubber balls until he admitted Naruto finished the second phase. The third phase, however, was much harder, which calmed Kakashi considerably. If he had got the Rasengan in under 10 minutes, Kakashi would want him to be at least a special Jonin right then and there. Well, you know the deal. Learn how to contain the power and the form within the balloon, not making it pop, and then you learn the Rasengan, Kakashi said with a nice smile. Naruto glared at his teacher. He had thought it was going to be easy when he got the first two down in a matter of minutes, but couldn't get it good enough on the final phase. bit irritated. I'm going to go back to the house now. I'll leave a shadow clone with the girls. I'm sure you can handle things here yourself. Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded, his focus more on the balloon than his teacher. Kakashi sighed. Children don't know respect anymore, he said with a shake of the head and headed off. A loud pop was heard, and a shout of curses were heard, making Kakashi laugh to himself as he made the shadow clone and left the forest. 3 days later, dinner time. The team of 4 was eating dinner with the 2 homeowners, Tazuna and his daughter, Tsunami. Naruto, who was exhausted from wasting too much chakra on trying to learn the Rasengan, smiled happily, ready to eat. But a voice then rang out. Why do you guys train so much? You'll never beat Gato. Naruto, who was slightly disappointed that he couldn't eat, looked at Tsunami's son, Inari. As if, Gato is a teeny-weeny little man. The only thing he has is money. Naruto said, picking up his chopsticks, and about to grab a piece of meat from his plate, but was once interrupted again. No one can beat Gato. Stop trying to be a hero. There's no such thing. Naruto had an annoyed look in his eyes. He shifted his gaze at the boy. There are plenty of heroes, you just have to find them. I can list 5 heroes right here and now, and 3 of them are sitting at this table right now. His team looked at him with wide eyes. He thought they were his heroes. Why? How are you going to tell me? You've had a nice little comfy home all your life, and then come into our village, proclaiming yourselves as heroes. You have no idea what suffering is like. The little boy yelled. Naruto's chopsticks were instantly snapped in half, his eyes were looking down at his plate. How dare you? Naruto whispered, sending out Kai, scaring the boy. He stood up abruptly, his chair sliding backwards into a wall, making a tiny dent into it. His eyes were covered with his blonde hair, which made him look even more threatening. Who do you think you are? Naruto said. Another burst of Kai burst into the atmosphere, making everyone in the room start sweating. Do you honestly think you're the only person who's ever lost someone? He pointed at Sayuri. She watched her clan get slaughtered by her own brother. He said angrily. He then pointed at Kakashi. He witnessed his whole team die, and his sensei be murdered. He then took off his cloak, something he rarely did. He pulled off his gray shirt, exposing his six-pack, and many scars. He pointed at a long faded scar. I was 3 years old, when a drunk villager took a broken bottle, and thought it would be fun to see. He pointed at another scar. When I was 4, a small group of villagers beat the snot out of me, leaving a lot of open wounds. He then showed the rest of his scars, those on his back. When I was 5, a large group of villagers took me away, and cut me over and over with their knives. He slowly unwrapped the scarf around his head, revealing the rest of his handsome face, and 3 darkened scars on each of his cheeks, seemingly to look like whiskers. These aren't whiskers. Or birthmarks. They're scars. He yelled, startling everyone. They took a rusty knife, and shoved it in my cheeks, and ripped them open. Don't you tell me I don't know what the fuck suffering means. He screamed angrily, his eyes flashing a bright red. He then put on his cloak and scarf back on quickly before vanishing into thin air. Everyone was shocked at the way the boy spoke. He was usually a kind, energetic boy, not the angry, threatening boy they had just witnessed. Sayuri glared at Inari. You're stupid, you know that, she said in a low voice. A complete idiot without the slightest clue on what's going on in the world. She stood up. I'm going to find Naruto, she whispered as she walked out the door. With Naruto. Naruto appeared out of thin air in the middle of the forest, his eyes red with black slits in the middle, as a red Rasengan was formed in his hand. He screamed loudly in rage, and smashed the Rasengan into a nearby tree, making it splinter and break, shattering it completely, and making the large tree fall onto the ground in front of him. His eyes slowly returned back to their bright blue, and he collapsed onto the ground, a smile on his face, his previous mood all but forgotten. I did it, he said. All of his chakra was now gone, he had eaten nothing at the house, so he couldn't replenish his energy, hence the reason why he was in Kyuubi mode for a few seconds. Naruto yawned and curled up in a small ball, shivering slightly. He heard someone coming, but he didn't care. He was tired. Naruto. Sayuri's voice rang out as she saw his body laying on the ground. Naruto smiled again. Yay. A friend. Come here. He said softly, not moving an inch. She cautiously walked up to him, and bent down and looked in his eyes, blue meeting black. Hi. He said. Sayuri couldn't keep the small smile off her face. Naruto's eyes brightened. So you can smile. Her smile instantly disappeared. No. He said weakly. She sighed. We have to get you back to the house, she said softly. Naruto shook his head slowly. I don't want to go back there. Besides, I can barely move. This was a lie. He could move, if he needed to, but the situation didn't call for it. Sayuri stood up. Well, good night then, she said as she began walking away, but something grabbed her hand. She looked back to see her pale hand in his tan one. Stay, he said simply. She looked around, as if looking for someone. But it's cold. She tried to reason, but Naruto shook his head. You can be in my cloak with me, he said, his voice getting softer. Don't leave me alone. he said in a soft whisper. Sayuri's heart went out for the blonde, but she immediately reeled it back in. Itachi first, romance later. She told herself. Fine. But no one knows, she said warningly. Naruto nodded eagerly. She lay down next to him, putting some distance between them, and tried to put the cloak around her, but it was too small. It won't work like that, he said in a simple tone before he grabbed her and pulled her closer to him, her back against his chest. Here. Better. Sayuri didn't trust her voice. She was blushing a deep red and could only nod in response. Naruto smiled and laid his head down next to hers, his arms still wrapped around her waist as they fell asleep. The next morning, Sayuri woke up, feeling comfortable and at ease. She felt extremely warm and just wanted to stay that way forever. But sadly, she couldn't sleep anymore. She opened her eyes and met a pair of dark blues staring right into hers. She was startled for a second, before remembering what had happened the previous night. She then realized how close their faces actually were. Only a single inch separated their heads, and therefore lips from touching. Her whole body flushed red as she saw how close she was. Naruto smirked. Morning. You seemed comfortable, he said. You kept snuggling deeper into my chest, and me being the gentleman I am, I let you. She let out a small squeak as she instantly jumped out of the warmth of the cloak, sputtering random words. No, wait, was I? No. I wasn't. You plagued my thoughts with lies, she yelled, her face still red from embarrassment. Naruto, who was now sitting up, rubbed his eyes, a smile gracing his lips. You know, he had a mischievous glint in his eyes. If I didn't know better, I would think you liked sleeping with me. He then started blushing. Not like that, of course, we're too young, he said hastily. Then again, you are trying to rebuild your clan, aren't you? He said thoughtfully. Idiot, she yelled, blushing up a storm as she went to hit him on the head. He vanished right behind her. What did the air do to you, Sayuri-chan? He teased. She went to kick him, but he just dodged it by catching it with his hand. Faster and harder. He smiled again. That's what she said. She growled furiously at him, before making a few hand signs. Die, you pervert, she yelled as she blew out a large fireball at him. Naruto laughed slightly, enjoying her reaction. He jumped into the air, avoiding the fireball, and applied chakra to his feet so he could stick to the tree above him. I am far from a pervert, Sayuri-chan. I just enjoy a nice laugh now and then. I actually dislike perverts, and the only one I tolerate is the biggest of them all, he said. He jumped down from off the tree. I'm ready to go back to the house when you are, he whispered to her. She quickly composed herself and adopted her emotionless facade. Fine, come on, she said as she stormed off. Naruto shook his head in an amused way and followed the girl. The next day. Are you sure you want to leave your teammate? He might be able to help you, a worried Tsunami said. Today was the day Zabuza was supposedly to come back from the dead. Kakashi waved the worried woman off. Nah, he needs to sleep in. He almost broke his back yesterday. He looked at Sayuri. Sleeping with someone to make them comfortable, he said, suspicion evident in his voice. Sayuri had a faint blush on her cheeks. Wasn't like that, she huffed. Kakashi just rose an eyebrow. Sure, it wasn't. He dodged a can of tuna easily. But anyways, let's get this over with, Tazuna-san. I'm sure Zabuza isn't going to wait for you just to get there, he said as the three ninja and the bridge builders started walking towards the unfinished bridge. Naruto woke up with a loud yawn, rubbing his eyes, trying to get the sleep out of them. Successful, he hopped out of bed and got dressed. He then heard a loud crash from downstairs and some men shouting. He sighed and grabbed his short sword and slowly crawled down the stairs. If you hurt him, I'll bite my tongue. You need a hostage, right? Tsunami shouted at the swordsman who had been advancing towards her son. The man snorted and turned away from Inari. You're lucky, kid. Mommy just saved your life. He grabbed Tsunami by the hair and began dragging her. Come on. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Naruto said in a small whisper, his sword in his right hand and a kunai in the other. Put her down now, or I'll carve a smile on your face, he said in a sadistic manner, his head tilted and eyes wide, bloodshot. The man smirked and released the woman's hair from his grasp and advanced towards Naruto. Like a little brat, like you could do anything to me or my friend, he said smugly. Naruto just smiled under his scarf and threw the kunai at a speed too quick to follow, and watched as it impaled the man's forehead. The man's friend, who had a small eye patch, yelled in rage and charged Naruto. Untrained assholes like you deserve to die, Naruto said darkly as his sword found its way into the thug's chest, warm blood spilling from the wound. Trash will always be trash, he said simply. He then looked at Inari. You did something brave today, Inari. I'm proud of you. Protect your mother. I have to go help my friends, he said with a nice smile before he ran out the door. With the rest of the team, Sayuri wasn't having a very good day. First, she had to wake up early, then, she had to walk all the way with the bridge builder, who smelled like booze, and finally, she had dozens of senbon needles in her body, which by the way, wasn't very comfortable. She grunted as she dodged another hail of needles. The person named Haku, the fake hunter nin, was using a Kekai Genkai that made him be able to travel through his ice mirrors at very high speeds that were even hard for her to follow. She had unlocked her Sharingan, a fact she would be normally extremely pleased in, but she would probably celebrate when she got out of here. If she got out of there. Her fireball jutsus weren't working, and she didn't know what to do. She kept feeling the needles impaling her body. A wince of pain escaped from her mouth each time. She was dangerously low on chakra, and a single thought occurred to her. She then felt light, as if something was carrying her. She looked up slowly, but each time she moved, she felt pain. The needles slowly came out of her, one by one, and she felt almost instant relief. She looked up at her savior and saw no other than Naruto Uzumaki. She wanted to smile, but her vision started blacking out. She managed out a couple words, before she was knocked out though. "My Naruto-kun is here," she whispered. Naruto smirked as he laid the now unconscious girl on the ground. He looked at the masked ninja with a dangerous glare. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his sword out. "I have orders to kill you. You must die," Haku said, his tone emotionless as he threw senbon after senbon at Naruto. Naruto immediately used his sword to deflect the tiny needles almost effortlessly, before he threw a kunai of his own at the fake hunter nin. Haku grabbed the kunai in midair, before noticing a piece of paper on it. He looked closer at it, trying to get a better look, before the paper exploded in his face, causing the mask to be destroyed and sending him back several feet. Naruto smirked. "I have orders to. It's to protect that girl from harm. You've made that hard," Naruto said, his voice laced with venom. Haku appeared again, a large gash under his eye. "I'm lucky I wore that mask, or that would have probably killed me," he said to himself. He then looked at Naruto and charged him. Naruto held a hand by his side, a blue chakra ball forming. "This is for Sayuri-chan," Naruto whispered as he charged Haku. "Now die," he shouted as he plunged the chakra ball into Haku's chest, spinning and destroying the boy's body. Rasengan. Naruto then turned around and saw Kakashi fighting Zabuza. He turned around again and focused on the body of Sayuri. "Kakashi-sensei has this. I haven't even heard Chidori yet," he whispered to himself. He then heard the infamous jutsu and barking of a couple dogs. He turned just in time to watch as Kakashi plunged his hand into Zabuza's heart, killing him instantly. He then the shouts of several people on the other side of the bridge. He turned around once again and saw a mini army with a small man with a cane in hand in it. He was clapping slowly. "Bravo, bravo, ninja of Konoha. You saved me some money, but then again, I would have killed him anyway," the tiny man said. Naruto rose a brow, but his hand was clenched on his sword inside his cloak. "Gato, I presume," Naruto said. Gato nodded, a smug smirk on his face. Naruto pulled out his sword from under his cloak. "I have to kill you. Nothing personal," he said before rushing the small army. Gato, surprised by the blonde's act, ran behind the army of thugs. "Get him. He's only one brat," he yelled. The small army charged Naruto, sprinting so they could meet him halfway. So imagine their surprise, when Naruto blows out a large fireball, burning most of the men alive. The men who survived were going to die soon. "Gato," Naruto began. He was walking up to the midget, his sword scraping against the wall. "I know what you did. You murdered countless people, didn't you? You also sent men to kidnap Tazuna's daughter, and kill their grandson. But now, I'll stop you. Your precious little life is now over," Naruto said before grabbing a kunai and throwing it quickly at the man's head, hitting him dead in the middle of both eyes. Gato staggered back, falling into the sea under the bridge, dead. Naruto then turned around for what was the last time that day and smiled at Kakashi. "I know it's bad to kill and wet it, but I am seriously happy I did that," he said. Kakashi only nodded at his student, not sure on what to say. Sakura and Tazuna were both shocked at Naruto's brutality and statement, but he didn't care. He walked up to Sayuri and picked her up bridal style. "Come on, we gotta go. Sayuri needs a nice bed to stay in." Sayuri woke up, her body aching. "Damn, I can't believe that guy beat me," she thought. She felt something in her hand and looked down at it, and was surprised to see a nice tan hand in hers. She followed the arm the hand belonged to and saw Naruto sitting next to her, his back on the wall, his scarf gone, revealing his handsome face, sleeping peacefully. She looked back at his hand and realized how warm and welcoming his touch was. She smiled softly, enjoying the peace the hand gave her. She then realized something. For the first time in 7 years, ever since the death of her clan, she's felt at peace. Only Naruto could make her feel at peace, which made her feel weird. Her insides were all heavy, and she felt like she had something fluttering inside her. She shook her head softly, a smile still on her face. She closed her eyes and leaned in to give Naruto a kiss on the cheek. Same time with Naruto. Naruto had been sitting on the floor next to Sayuri for what seemed like hours. He couldn't fall asleep next to her, thinking she might actually kill him for 2 days ago. He had grabbed her hand, and liked the way it seemed to fit in his hand. It was smaller than his, but seemed to fit it perfectly, like it was made to just hold his hand. He felt her wake up, and was happy to see she didn't pull away her hand. He thought it was now time to make himself known, that he was awake. He opened his eyes and turned his head towards her, only to meet a pair of soft pink lips connect with his. His eyes were wide, and Sayuri's eyes bolted open. Not one to waste an opportunity as good as this, closed his eyes and pushed forward, enjoying the kiss. Sayuri, who was still shocked she had accidentally kissed Naruto, was even more shocked when Naruto pushed forward, initiating the kiss further, and even more when she found herself responding in sync. The kiss all too soon ended, and Naruto came back, breathing for air, his face containing a silly smile. Sayuri, who was a little disappointed the kiss ended, couldn't keep a smile from coming on her face as well. Well, that was nice. Naruto breathed out, earning a nod from Sayuri in return. Maybe I can get him to help me kill Itachi, but only him. No one else. That single thought plagued Sayuri's mind from the time since the kiss, and the way back home. Flashback. Naruto was sitting crises crossed on the ground, waiting instruction from his teacher. Itachi, who was pacing back and forth, finally came to the decision. Do you want to know about your mother and father Naruto? He asked. Naruto's eyes widened and nodded eagerly. Itachi ran a hand through the blonde's hair. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. She was from the village hidden in the whirlpool, a village with only one clan, the Uzumaki clan. They were experts in Fuinjutsu and in Kenjutsu. Sadly, I can't teach you Fuinjutsu, but your father was the greatest there ever was in that aspect. Naruto, your father is Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Itachi finished. Naruto was speechless. The man that had damned him to be a Jinchuriki was none other than his father. An overwhelming anger swelled over him until Itachi poked him in the forehead. Don't get angry. The fourth Hokage put the Kyuubi inside you because he believed that you would be able to tame the beast. Besides, he couldn't ask another parent to give up their child. In his final moments, he gave his life for you. Itachi said. Naruto looked at the ground in shame. The moment of anger had vanished. He then smiled. I'm pretty cool then huh, aren't I Itachi-sensei? Itachi smiled warmly at his student. Yes, Naruto. Yes, you are. He whispered. Naruto was walking down the street, a map in his hands as he walked turns, and desperately tried to find what he was looking for. His sword needed sharpening ever since Wave, and the idea of a dull sword didn't sit right with him, so he asked Kakashi where a weapons shop was, so he could get it sharpened. Kakashi just pulled out a map from Konoha, and pointed it at the general area of it, before going back to reading his book. Naruto cursed loudly as he saw the same sign for food for the sixth time in a row. He had been walking in circles the whole time, and he was getting frustrated. He sighed and threw the map on the ground. Worthless piece of garbage. He whispered at a piece of paper, glaring holes into it. He was about to make some shadow clones, before a girl bumped into him roughly. He rolled his eyes and turned around. That was mean. He trailed off as he watched her try to balance all the weapons in her hands. The stack surpassed her height by at least 2 feet, and it was a mix of all weapons, including swords, axes, kunes, and a crossbow. Weird. Sorry about that. She yelled from behind the large stack of weapons. Naruto easily picked up some of the load to ease her suffering. Now he could see her face. She had brown eyes and 2 buns on the top of her head. She smiled at Naruto gratefully. Thank you. Naruto smiled back. Naruto Uzumaki. He replied. And you are? Tenten Mitsushi. My father owns the weapons shop over there. She said, using her head to nod towards a building a couple meters away from them. Naruto deadpanned. I've been looking for that place all day, and haven't found it. He said. Tenten smiled at him. Can you help me bring these in? I'll give you a 50% discount on whatever you need. Naruto nodded. She grinned. Cool, thanks a bunch. They walked together into the store and gently placed the weapons on the ground. Naruto, who had been looking at the crossbow, was looking at it weirdly. Why would anyone want to have a crossbow? You don't have a lot to hunt around here, and it's impractical to have as a shinobi. He said, his eyes narrowed at it. Tenten shrugged. It's not that impractical to have as a ninja. You can use it for distance shooting. She said. Naruto shook his head. It would take too long to have to pull it back all the way, and even then, most missions, you're facing enemy ninja and they can hear the arrow whistling through the air, enabling them to dodge it easier. Shoot, I might be able to catch the arrow. He said. Tenten smirked. Want to put that to the test? If you catch the arrow, I'll give you one thing for free. Naruto smirked. Deal. He said as he shook her hand. 5 minutes later. You sure you want to do this? I could actually kill you. Tenten yelled at the blonde. The 2 figures were standing about 30 meters away from each other. Tenten had the crossbow ready, and Naruto was standing still, waiting. Just do it. I want my sword sharpened for free. He said. Really sharp. He muttered. She shrugged and aimed for his shoulder. That way, if he didn't catch it, he would still live. She slowly pulled the trigger, and watched as the arrow shot towards the blonde. Naruto, his trained eyes were used to that speed, watched as the arrow slowly made its way to him. He grabbed the shaft of the arrow. The arrowhead was a centimeter away from his forehead. He looked at Tenten with a shocked look. Were you trying to kill me? He asked. Tenten looked at him in horror. No. I was aiming for your shoulder, I swear. She shouted. Naruto walked up to her and smiled. Good, it would have been bad if you were, cause then I wouldn't get my free thing. He handed her his sword. Can you sharpen this to the max, and make sure it doesn't get dull easily? He asked her. Tenten nodded. Sure. It should be ready by tomorrow. Naruto nodded and started walking out the store. Thank you for all your help. I appreciate it. He said as he walked out, a final wave at the bun-headed girl. He put his hands in his pockets and wondered what he should do while he waited. He could always visit Sayuri, but then shook his head. Their relationship now was complicated. It was awkward ever since that kiss. He wasn't sure if she was his girlfriend, or if they were just friends still. He shook the thoughts away, as a box ever so slightly edged its way towards the blonde. It was painted like a rock. Naruto had an idea of who it was. I wonder where Konoha is. Maybe I'll ask him to play ninja with me. He heard a group of small giggles coming from the fake rock. He started waking again, and watched in amusement as the rock trailed from behind him. He decided to crush their hopes. Konoha, rocks don't move, and they aren't a cube either. A large burst of smoke appeared, and a bunch of loud coughing. Come on Yuden, more coughing. You use so much power. Said a girl with two pigtails standing straight up with bright red hair. A boy with a constant runny nose and glasses replied. Sorry. The boy muttered. Konoha was about to begin his intro before he was hit on top of the head. Don't do that, we're the Konoha Koridite. It's boring and repetitive, and kinda arrogant. Naruto said as he watched the boy nurse the top of his head. Naruto then looked at the other two kids. Hey Yuden, hey Mogi, you need to stop following this guy's lead. He can be dumb sometimes. Konoha recovered from his embarrassment. Come on boss. Play ninja with us. He shouted loudly, a large smile on his face. Naruto eyes smiled. Sure, but if I catch you first, you know the deal. You have to ask Iruka-sensei what it means to be a shinobi, that way, you'll be bored for hours. The group shivered, knowing about Iruka's long senseless lectures that could go on forever. Naruto pulled out a kunai and balanced it on his finger. You have 30 seconds, go, he said. He would go after Yuden this time, he hadn't gotten the boy in a while. After the 30 seconds passed, Naruto began turning around a corner, only to witness Konoha being held up by his collar, in the hands of a boy with makeup on and a catsuit on. Weird. He walked up to the makeup boy. Please put him down, I don't care what he did to you, all I know is that he's being held in a potential enemy's clutches, and I may have to resort to heavy measures to get him back. Naruto said, taking out a kunai to show his point. Literally. The boy smirked. Please, I can take you down, Runt. I'm the Kazekage's kid, I'm way stronger than you. Naruto smirked beneath his scarf, before glaring at the boy. Looks like we got something in common, for I am also Kage's kid. He then pointed at Konoha. And he's the grandson of a Kage too. So I'd be careful. The boy laughed. You're the Hokage's kid. Don't make me laugh. He's so old to have a kid your age. Besides, he started but never finished as he looked into Naruto's deep blue eyes. I didn't say I was the third Hokage's kid, did I? Look at me, and tell me who I look like. The boy looked at Naruto, looking all over, his eyes narrowed as he studied him. Then, realization hit him in the face. You don't mean you're the fourth. Naruto nodded, cutting him off. One last chance, put him down, or I'll break the puppet on your back. Don't tempt me. Naruto said darkly. Then, a blonde girl with 4 pigtails spoke up. Come on Konkuro, we don't have time for this, he may be around. She said warningly. The boy named Konkuro hesitated before a tiny pebble hit his hand, making him drop Konoha flat on his ass. He looked up to see Sayuri Uchiha, sitting on the tree branch above. It's not smart to mess with royalty in an enemy village, is it? She said as she jumped on the ground next to Naruto. Naruto looked at her and smiled at her, not that she could tell. He closed his eyes and tilted his head to show her though, and got a small smile in return. Konkuro, who was getting something off his back, was stopped when a red head stopped him, the symbol of love on his forehead. You're making a fool of Suna Konkuro, stop, or I'll kill you. Naruto sensed something inside the boy, something dangerous. The urgent Shuriki are you, and guessing by your affiliation, you have Shikaku, the one tails do you not? Naruto asked. All of a sudden, a large thing of sand grabbed his leg, and turned him upside down. Sayuri, who was about to jump in, was stopped when Naruto held up his hand, telling her to stop. Mother wants your blood. The Redeed said. Naruto looked at the boy. Shut up, he said simply, causing the Redeed to get a look of surprise. No one had ever told him to shut up before. Konkuro and Temari were waiting for their brother, Gar, to kill the idiotic blonde, but it never came. What did you say to me? Gar said, still in shock. I said shut up. I don't like what the beast did to your mind, making you think it's your mother. Which is funny cause it's a guy. He laughed. Maybe Shikaku wanted to be a girl. Gar clenched his head, and breathed in the air. I'll do it, I'll kill him mother, but not yet. The pain in the Redeed's head seemed to go away instantly. He then glared at Naruto. Be wary of me, he said darkly. Naruto glared at the Raditz in return. I could say the same to you. A voice said from behind Gaara, a kunai placed on his neck, and another on his heart. Gaara was shocked as the blonde in his grasp turned away. Naruto leaned into the boy's ear. You're venerable to genjutsu, it's quite pathetic. He whispered before walking away, and standing next to Sayuri. I look forward to meeting you in the exams. Gaara said. What's your name? Naruto smirked. Naruto Uzumaki, or Naruto Namikaze, either is fine. And I hope I meet you in the exam. Gaara of the sand. He then turned away. Come to Mari, Kankuro, we're leaving. He said as he walked past the two other sand ninja, and then being followed in return. Naruto turned to Sayuri with another ice smile. That was fun. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.